you're going to have to show that you make 80 times the rent in a year. So if your kid wants a $4,000 apartment, you need to prove that you make $320,000 a year.
That is what you'll need to rent an apartment in New York City. The housing expense in that city is outrageous. Okay. We're going to hear more from this guy in a minute. Look, I'm going to say something about Zoran Mamdani later in this video that may really shock you. But first, let's continue to take a look at one of the ways that this socialist government up there is attempting to get housing costs under control. Now, the thing is, when you're a socialist, you've already proven that you really don't understand how the economy works, right? Going in. So it's going to be a real tough road to hoe to get things to a point where people can't afford it. And here, New York City has a geographic issue that will only allow rents to come down, or housing costs, period, to come down so much. All right. We're talking about a lot of people in a little bit of landmass. All right. That's why they build up, not out. And that's why things are so expensive, because there's a lot of demand. So Mamdani, he has this initiative that he's starting called the Rental Ripoff Report.
Mayor Mamdani set to release a rental ripoff report today. It comes after renters across the city got a chance to sound off about the issues they're facing. Christina Fan joins us live from the Lower East Side with more on what we can expect now. Christina.
Well, Mayor Mamdani says for far too long, New York City tenants have been paying way too much for rent and getting too little in return. He says the rental ripoff report released just this morning aims to correct that imbalance a little bit. The report is the result of months of hearings where more than 2,400 tenants stepped forward to air their grievances. Some of the top complaints were about pest, mold, and broken elevators to landlords who falsely claimed that repairs were made when they actually weren't. The report lays out 23 recommendations. One of them, starting this fall, would require the city's housing department to stop treating multiple heat or hot water complaints from the same building as duplicates. Instead, inspectors will need to investigate every tenant report. The administration is also pushing for formal legal recognition of tenant unions, and also wants to test whether smaller European-style elevators can be installed in some of the city's existing walk-ups. The mayor is expected to hold a news conference at 9:30 this morning, detailing more proposals from that sprawling 67-page report.
67 pages is not sprawling, lady. But listen, I have heard of credible instances of landlords in New York City painting over black mold. Totally unacceptable. So to the extent that you can keep folk in compliance and doing things that would prevent slumlords from owning these buildings, I'm all with that. Okay. And look, I am a private property absolutist. However, the city in which you operate does have a right to say, hey, you can't rent this if you got mold in the place and you're determined not to remediate it, right? All right. But when you start talking about, no, we're going to add elevators, they're going to be tenants unions, that's adding expense. Okay. Now he says that he wants to lower expenses, but what he's actually doing is adding expenses. Okay. And here's another thing that's really going to add a lot of expense to the rental situation up in New York City. Mamdani's credit check ban to backfire, trapping renters into even higher rents, according to a broker. Now, what is this ban that he has on credit checks? Well, he's saying that he doesn't want you to be able to do both a credit check and a background check. Mayor Zoran to rent an apartment. Mayor Zoran Mamdani says he wants to lighten the load on New York City renters. A veteran Manhattan broker says the mayor's newest idea will do the opposite. The proposal, part of Mamdani's 23-point rental ripoff report released last Thursday would stop landlords from requiring both a credit check and proof of income from the applicants, forcing owners to pick one screening method over the other. Now, here's the problem. I have had to submit a credit check and proof of income. I know people with excellent credit and very low income. Okay. I know people with great incomes and bad credit. So there is a bona fide reason to do both. But I'm going to tell you, because he wants to put this rule in place to prevent landlords from doing both. What the property owners are going to respond by raising security deposits and rent. Okay, so they can get that higher first month rent. Here in Maryland, we do security deposit first and last month's rent. Okay. Sia Weaver, we talked about her ad nauseum. Director of the Mayor's Office of Office to Protect Tenants, liking the idea to the 2024 FAIR Act, which made landlords cover broker fees instead of tenants. Like the law, the new rules would need city council approval, of course. All right, so he wants to do that, and he doesn't realize, because he's a socialist, he can't really comprehend how the economy works, so he doesn't understand cause and effect. All right, but let's hear a little more from this guy on how we're going to hear from a broker, that broker we heard from at the beginning. Let him talk to us about how this thing works in New York City. In order to get an apartment, a young person has to jump through a lot of hoops to make that happen.
My daughter wants to live in New York City. I don't want to live there, but she just graduated from college. She's 22. Great girl. Never told a lie in her whole life.
Okay, this is what he hears as a broker. He's being funny, or at least trying to be.
Very trustworthy. Got a new job and she's moving out there for it, but she doesn't yet have the money, so I'm going to be her guarantor. And the stuff that they are asking me for as a guarantor is insane. I make a lot of money, but I'm not sharing all this stuff with these people. I don't know these people. I wouldn't give this much information to my lawyer. You know, if I wanted to buy a house in my hometown for $5 million, I wouldn't need to prove this much money. And she's just trying to get a studio apartment. I'm not doing it. Hey, Dad. I'm a licensed real estate agent in New York State. I live and work in Manhattan. People hire me to help them find their homes and navigate the rental process. And I make these videos so that people like your daughter get information that hopefully helps. First of all, I empathize with you. You are right. The approval process for guarantors in New York City is ridiculous and borderline offensive and definitely invasive. The good news is you don't have to do it, but the bad news is if you want your daughter to get the apartment, you do. What is even a guarantor? A guarantor is someone who co-signs a lease and guarantees that if the tenant is not able to pay rent, then that person will. And the financial requirements are really, really strict, basically because eviction laws are really strong in New York City and they protect the tenant. It's hard to get a tenant kicked out if they're not paying rent. And it's a very, very expensive city to live in. So it's not uncommon for a young person to move here, have a good paying job, but not be able to pay rent because they blow all their money on the lifestyle and other things like that. So landlords, if a guarantor is involved, they really, really want to be sure that the guarantor makes a lot of money.
Okay, and the typical, not the average, okay, the typical rents for a studio apartment in New York City range between $3,300 and $3,500 per month for a New York City studio apartment. Okay, you know, one of those where you open the door and you got to kind of go in sideways because it's so tight. A one bedroom will set you back between $3,700 and $4,000 a month. And a two bedroom, now you're talking $4,300 to $5,200, and a three bedroom $6,000. Okay. And that's what we got going on in New York. Now, again, it's because there are 9 million people in just a handful of square miles, basically, right? Okay. And there's a lot of demand to be in New York, financial capital of the world. The UN's there. There's got a lot going on. Okay. We know. One thing I will say for Mamdani, okay, that may surprise you. I am not one of these guys that, he's going to do 100% of the things bad. He probably will end up doing 95% of the things that work towards screwing the long-term economic health of New York. But when it comes to these slum landlords, look, painting over black mold, that's total BS. All right. It's putting lives at risk, really. Okay. You don't have hot water, rather. You don't have heat in the winter, AC in the summer, and you're paying rent. All right. Unacceptable. So I will say that aspect, keeping property owners accountable, and many of them are, okay, we're not talking about all, but few bad apples, you know how it is, they spoil the whole bunch. So I do see the efficacy in doing that, right? And I actually applaud that. I'm not afraid to say it.
Good morning.
Life is unpredictable. One moment, you're going to work.
I need to wash my car.
The next moment, rabid bobcat.
Oh my God, the bobcat! Oh my God! Get up! Get up! Get up! It's the beat! Get up! Blessings! Watch out!
We can get life insurance for anyone,
Watch out! Watch
including him.
the bobcat attacked my wife! A bobcat!
But at the end of the day, look, you got to pay to play, right? So if you insist on living in New York City, this is what you're dealing with. Will Mamdani be able to bring these prices down substantially? If he will, if he carries out the majority of his plans, because if he does that, he will make New York a lot less attractive place to live in the first place, right? Especially when, and we'll do a video on this, especially when the New York Stock Exchange is setting up shop in Texas. Okay. Technology is allowing all of us to be able to work from anywhere. And I'm not saying that would be an overnight process, but if things remain status quo for the most part, and unless Manhattan gets some more square footage or square mileage somehow, then you're going to continue to see elevated rents, especially with inflation, which is ever present. Talk to you soon.